Should Rishi Sunak be going to COP27?
I think he should, actually. I think there's a measure of disappointment in a wide disappointment that this is not going to go ahead. That isn't to say I can't understand the pressures he's under. Of course I can, because there he is. He's the new prime minister. He's got a lot to deal with. And he's got obviously focusing on the budget and things like that. But you have to remember that the UK is still until the opening of COP26, I think it's about 8 days from 27, well, about 8 days from now, is still the president of COP26, and Alok Sharma is, as it were, still in charge until the official handover takes place in Sharm el-Sheikh. And we did put a lot of effort into COP26, and it still goes on now. And we relied on the participation and collaboration of our fellows. And we had certain events where we had special leaders summit. I can recall, for example, something which Zach Goldsmith was very heavily involved in, which was getting world leaders together to adopt a statement on forests. It wasn't just a statement on forests, it was a statement on preservation of terrestrial ecosystems as a whole. And so we were very heavily involved. And as the outgoing president, and the normal course of events would be that the incoming president, as it were, receives the outgoing president, and they're there at heads of state level. Well, we are where we are, and I think that all that said, the UK does have a very strong case to make in Sharm el-Sheikh. We are, very much committed to the climate change goal. I would say that on the nature goal, things are looking a little bit iffy, because we have a stage. We've just gone through a very, very difficult stage where Britain's commitment, the UK's commitment, as it were, nature targets, has been pretty much under attack very, very widely, partly because of issues like the environmental planning laws and the fracking and the investment zones. But more important, I think, because there has been this absolute sense of dismay and consternation in this country about the proposal made by Jacob Rees-Mogg to rip up, I think it was about 750 environmental laws, or at least expose them to us, the threat of a sunset clause, not to speak of another 2,000. So, to answer your question, yes, I think it would be a good idea if he can manage to find time in his agenda, because just at this moment, there's a little bit of concern and doubt about the commitment of this government to, as it were, overriding climate and nature protection bills. I throw in nature protection there because, as Grace Coffey said so clearly this morning and in other places, nature protection is part of it, which is again why we, the NGO community and others like me, who are not the NGO community but are involved, are desperately worried about what I call this European Retained Legislation Act, which is going to cause complete havoc in so many sectors. So please, yes, let's hope that Mr. Sunak finds a moment in his calendar. He ought at least to try and get there for the heads of summits.
Well, I was about to ask. It's been reported that Joe Biden, the US president, is going to go. And you raised the point that there are doubts on the international stage about Britain's commitment to this under a new government. That will be a bad look, wouldn't it, if Joe Biden was there and Rishi Sunak was not?
Yes, I think particularly about our relationships with Egypt. I mean, I was very, very kindly invited by the Egyptian government in May to attend a 2-day seminar on the planning of what they call the water initiative for COP27, and there's absolutely no doubt about it that the relationship UK-Egypt is tremendously important. I had a dinner with our ambassador. There was Gareth Bailey, who set up a dinner and invited all kinds of people, and they were taking it very, very seriously. And so I think that is important. And I don't quite buy this notion that, yes, there are important COPs and less important COPs, which I've heard some advance. All COPs are important, and this particular COP, COP, actually happens to be, would you believe it, the 30th anniversary of the 1992 adoption of the Framework Convention on Climate Change. So, it's hard to say that this is not an important day. So I very much hope that, and then this is, of course, not just a question of as it were, climate change, so nature change. I would have thought there's quite a spin-off at this moment in Rishi Sunak actually meeting, face to face, the leaders of the world in Sharm el Sheikh, quite apart from being a very agreeable place to be. So yes, I hope he will go. I hope he will stress Britain's commitment on nature protection, on climate change, and of course, if you look at the 5 goals of this COP26, mitigation, are we really going to get back on track to 1.5? Well, as you remember, Glasgow, Alok Sharma ended his passionate thing, 1.5, we kept it alive. Well, the unit came up with the report the other day saying, actually, we're not so much getting to 1.5, more likely we're going to get to 2.8 degrees increase in temperature. So the mitigation goal is still there. The adaptation goal, particularly important in the Egyptian context, because there we are, we as it were, the Western world, have used up quite a lot of the absorptive capacity of the atmosphere. The developing world is paying the price. The third one, I won't go through all 5, but the third one, of course, is absolutely crucial, and maybe that's a little bit more embarrassing for the UK just at this moment, which is, of course, finance. Way back, if you remember, in Paris in December 2015, we agreed that the Western world, the rich world, not just the Western world, the developed countries, would put up 100 billion dollars a year to help the developing countries reach the goals which were established in Paris and reconfirmed in Glasgow. Well, that, of course, is going to be on the agenda. And obviously, if Rishi Sunak goes there, he'll have to go there knowing that Britain will have to cough up.
Have to put its hand in his wallet. Just one
last point, if I may, on this one, on the money side. You saw the papers this morning. The windfall profits which the energy companies have made would be more than enough to pay for, roughly speaking, the transition to net zero by the year, halfway to net zero by the year 2030. So this puts it a little bit in perspective.
Just one last question before I let you go, Stanley Johnson. Is your son Boris's career at the very top of British politics over, or can we expect him to have another crack?
No, I don't like to talk about family matters. So I'm gonna duck that one. But I will say that Boris has had the friendliest relationships with President El-Sisi, and I imagine that the Foreign Minister Sama Shukri is very friendly with James Cleverly, and Therese Coffey is already going to be there. Alok Sharma is going to be there. So I hope, even if Rishi Sunak does not actually
perhaps Boris should go to COP then instead of Rishi Sunak.
Well, I don't know about that. All I will say is that there's a wonderful new museum in Cairo. If he manages, whoever is there manages to get to Cairo, they will see the most wonderful thing. I happened to be in Cairo also just a few weeks ago, and I can tell you that is worth seeing.